All right, Libra, so this week from Lay Vampire, you pulled ecstasy, yielding, rapture, and bliss. And then from Chakra Wisdom, you pulled growth. Now, ecstasy talks about what we're surrendering to, or what we are allowing ourselves to take control over us, if just for a moment, to capture a moment of bliss and ecstasy. Now, the blessing says the ability to surrender to a higher power of your choosing is a valuable experience, as well as one which can provide intoxicating levels of delight. Working with this card says that there is power in the surrender, in great soul ecstasy, in the finding of the one who, for an instant, takes the burdens of decisions and gives you great relief and satisfaction and pleasure. Be aware that you must choose this person with great care. It is time, though, for you to admit that in some ways, ecstatic experiences are our teacher, only when chosen wisely. Now, with growth, basically it's saying that if you're choosing to surrender to something or somebody, you're being smart about it. Now, growth, the inspiration here says that this card says break away. It may be time for a change of scenery. Visit a foreign country, embark on a new enterprise, or learn a skill. Most importantly, grow. But the personal question on this is the one that, really drives the point home. What have I outgrown? Am I willing to become independent? The key ideas are taking a stand, living your truth, and teaching by example. So basically, if you're surrendering to something this week, you're being smart about it. You're asking yourself, okay, I've done this before, but, now I'm looking at what kind of actions and people I may have outgrown here. So, again, ecstasy is great, but you have to choose wisely. But again, growth is saying that most of you guys are thinking smart about it, which is good. All right, Libra, here we go. Here's the energy coming through, the Hermit. So, it's no wonder why ecstasy is showing up. So for some of you, you may be in hermit mode. Now, there's a difference between isolation and solitude. And it could just be that for some of you, you're searching for some answers here, doing some soul searching. But this is pretty major here. I think for a lot of you, though, you may actually be in like a hermit mode, backing away from things, not wanting to get caught up in all the noise that's going on around you. And in the past, wow, what's up, Libra? The moon. Confusion. Now, like I've always said with the moon, there's, always that positive, but then there's always that kind of negative that's with it. Now, for some of you, it may just be confusion over how you're feeling. There may be some things that are coming to the surface here that you're going to have to deal with. I don't think that any of you are chasing illusions here, because the Hermit cancels that out almost. You're not going into escapism. You may have been before, but things are starting to change now. But to me, it's almost suggesting that in the past there wasn't a lot of clarity. Whether it's regarding a situation or your emotions, there's just no clarity. And you have Virgo and Pisces happening here. Oh boy. So this is going to be a big week for Libra. Judgment, right? Assessment, atonement, and rebirth. Basically making your peace with the past here and moving forward. For some of you, this is going to feel like, when you're talking about rebirth, a big second chance for some of you. Now, my thing with judgment too is, you have to be careful too about the way that you assess yourself or a situation, especially with the moon on top, because again, to me, it's saying that there isn't a whole lot of clarity here. But looking at these two looks really great. You're really searching for some answers here. But then also with judgment, right, hearing that calling. The major energy that's happening here, it feels like, I'm waiting to see how this connects here, but I'm kind of getting the feeling that, something major itself happened to you that set off like a chain of events that's happening here. Oh, yeah, geez. So, yeah. The Ten of Swords. Now, seeing this in future conditions is basically saying that, there is a painful ending that you're going to have to either face or you're going to have to release. Because, you know, again, my thing with the Ten of Swords is when I see it, especially with what you got going on here, it may be a situation where you're hanging on to something that should be done with. It's done and it's over with, but yet, you know, you're still with it. It's still with you and it's still going to be with you. And I understand now why the Hermit's there, you know, needing to take a break here from the outside noise to just kind of think about this and like make your peace with it, with judgment. Whew. All right. Your best path to follow, the Six of Swords, move away from that shit. Basically, you know, needing to go into a more calmer emotional state. Don't get caught up in conflict or mental conflict at that, you know. This looks great. These, you know, I question. There was no clarity. You're searching for it now, which is great. But, you know, you have to be careful about the assessments you're making here. Because if you're still lingering with this, there's something wrong. It needs to be cleared up and thrown away, you know. But I understand, though, too, it's like, you know, again, having that painful ending and being stuck with it and not really wanting to move forward. It's like trying to resurrect something that's been done and over with, you know, and you don't want to do that to yourself. It ended for a reason. But here, you know, you're definitely needing to move away from this and whatever mental conflict is surrounding it. In your environment, yeah, so, you know, needing to see the situation differently, and you are, right? I was expecting the painful thing to be in your environment rather than future conditions, but, you know, looking at the moon, it may have been like a kick in the ass for you to start reevaluating what's happening in your life, and on a major level here. Now, with the Seven of Pentacles, you know, I've always said that this is one of those cards where you're looking at, this is what I have to show. For all the time and effort that I've put into something, this is what I have to show for it. Am I happy with this? Is this what I expected to see? You know, is there a different way that I can be doing things here to create the things I actually want? You know, rather than being stuck with this shit. But it's still with you. That's the problem. You're reevaluating it, yeah, and you're making different judgments about the situation, but it's still there. But why, you know? So the Hermit's a good energy to have sitting there. Clearly, you're going to need to take some time here to really think things through, you know, and not listen to all the outside noise that's going on, you know? Soul searching, soul searching. Wow, Libra, what? Jeez. Your hopes and your fears, Temperance. Now, you know, needing to be patient with yourself. And, you know, you have guidance surrounding you with Temperance. And I think for some of you, it may just be an issue of, you know, this conflict over what I'm wanting, what I'm feeling, you know, what I want to see happen. And you needing to be patient with the situation, but more so with yourself here. You're really going to have to dig deep and just sit with the Hermit for a while until you have clarity, until you have that illumination with the moon, right? And having those things brought up so that you can face them down. Because it's like it's still there, it's still there, it's still there. You're moving through all this major energy, but yet, you know, this is still plaguing you. But why, you know? And I can understand why Temperance is there, because I would want to be like, come on, you know, let's get this over with. Let's move on now. You know, but this isn't something that you're going to be able to rush through. You know, even with the Six of Swords, it's a slow movement. You know, you still have those swords with you. You're wanting to leave them behind here, but, you know, you're going to have to deal with that while you move away from what brought you this pain in the first place. Man, Libra. And then your outcome, I'm telling you. Stop hanging on to shit. Don't do that to yourself. The Four of Pentacles immediately says to me that you're hanging on to something that you shouldn't be. And that's why it's still there. So no matter what you think that you're doing right now on major levels to correct issues in your life, for some reason you can't move forward, not truly here, because you're still like reevaluating this. And there's nothing to resurrect here. It's over with, you know? You're going to have to release that and get away from the noise of everything else. I mean, look at all the majors you got surrounding you on this ship. You know, and I know it's a lot easier said than done. You know, for some of you, you may be in a really tough spot, and it may be really difficult for you to just pick up and move forward here with the Six of Swords, but there's no point in trying to resurrect something that's done. You know, it's over with for a reason. It wasn't worthy of you in the first place, and you got to let go of that shit. Conflict? Maybe. So the Five of Wands being attached to that, you know, you're fighting a losing battle here, because this wouldn't be here otherwise, you know. And again, it goes back to what I was saying. You got to get away from the noise. You have to get away from all that noise, because nobody's hearing each other. And it's just bullshit. It's petty crap. But you're hanging on to it. But why? You know, it's over with. It needs to be over with. You know, unfortunately, it may be a situation for some of you where it may be like a painful ending, having arguments with people that are around you. But, you know, needing to back off here is not a bad thing. You know? All right, Libra, we're going to take a look at the soul trees to see what else is going on for you guys. You know, and again, it goes back to growth, asking yourself, what have you outgrown? And clearly this is something that, you know, most people would want to outgrow because it's a bunch of nonsense. And what is your intention? You have to accept that it's over and release it. And then start setting better intentions for yourself, especially in dealing with this situation. What is your intention for even being involved in it? You know? Then again, it may be something that you're kind of stuck with, that you may not have a choice here, looking at the Four of Pentacles with that. But, you know, clearly here, Spirit's trying to tell you it's time to move away from this now. You know, it's over with, right? You have to accept that it's over, release it, and move forward. Man, oh man, Libra, I feel bad because, you know, with your birthday month kicking in here and you have all this major energy going on and all these frustrating things, it's like, what the hell? You know, can we just have a moment of peace? Which may be why ecstasy is sitting there. Unrequited love. There's not enough attraction or chemistry to keep this relationship going. So, you know, if you are just now meeting somebody, there may not be enough there to keep the relationship going. There may be something else that you're going to have to do to get things moving. Children, your love life is being affected by children. Now, for those of you who are happy in a relationship, you know, when you're looking at children affecting your romance, it could be that, you know, just you or the other person has kids here, somebody's wanting children, another person isn't. It just depends on the situation here. But, you know, my main thing is when this card shows up, you have to be careful about, you know, children not being affected by the relationship, you know. And it could just be one of those things where if you're starting a relationship, you're waiting to kind of see how things go before you introduce children. And that could be on your side or your partner's. But, you know, whatever the case is here, the big thing for me is just make sure that, you know, the children don't get affected by what's going on. But, you know, I don't see that happening with Libra. I just think that this may be a case of somebody wanting children and maybe not being able to have them, possibly. But, you know, I will say here, Libra, the big time thing here is, damn it, you know, this is done. It's done with. Don't bring something back to life that wasn't worthy of you in the first place, and let it go. All right, Libra, so you have quite a few majors going on here. There's going to be some major events happening for you, but I do like that the Hermit is your signifier here, now seeing what's happening around you. I think that some of you are trying to resurrect something that's over and done with. Now, you may be facing a painful ending here in future conditions, but I think that, you know, this is something that's already done with. I think that you are having a hard time letting it go, and it's because there's this, like, battle that's happening, and it could be an inner battle. It could just be the conflict with people that are surrounding you. It doesn't look good. You need to let go of it, and what drives it home is the fact that you have the Six of Swords as your best path to follow. You got to move away from this shit. You know, and this isn't something that's going to be fast moving for you. you're going to have patience. You're going to have patience with yourself and the situation here. But, it still bothers me seeing that. I worry that if you hang on too tightly to something that's going to end badly because of, like, stupid arguments, you may be forced into solitude here. Now, on the other hand, you may just want to back the hell away from this. Like, I'm done listening to this. I can't do it anymore. I'm tired of the outside noise. I just need to search my own soul here, because you don't have any clarity from the past. And, for some of you, this may have to do with escapism, which I can kind of understand. But, there's also a beauty with the moon, though, too. If you have things that are coming to the surface about yourself that you don't want to deal with, now is the time for you to start facing that down. But I feel like you're making the wrong assessment here. I mean, between Judgment and the Seven of Pentacles, you would think that things would start moving forward in a more positive way. But instead, there's this painful ending that's still lingering, or that you may have to face. Now, I can understand why ecstasy is here, because with all that shit going on, I would want to, just forget about everything and let somebody else deal with all the shit too. But, is that maybe something you've outgrown? Maybe that's something that doesn't work for you anymore, and you know that it doesn't. I mean, there's nothing wrong with wanting to experience ecstasy, but at what cost? Now, as far as the soul trees go, I mean, you need to accept and release and set better intentions. Set better intentions for yourself. Because that conflict, I'm telling you, is no good. It's no good. And there's no reason to be continuing to, cling to it. Why would you want to keep that in your space? I can understand if it has something to do with a situation that's close to you, whether it's dealing with family or relationships. But you cannot resurrect something that wasn't worthy of you in the first place. I keep hearing that. You can't bring this back. It's done. And it's a good thing. It's just, I think that for some of you, it may be a hard thing for you to see or understand. Which is why you have all this major stuff going on. And again, you have to be patient. You have to be patient with yourself in this situation. You're going to be guided to do the right thing. But you can't hang on to that kind of conflict. Now, when it comes to relationships, unrequited love, there's not enough. There's just not enough happening here. So something has to change for there to be more attraction for both of you if, you're meeting somebody new here. Or it's got to be over with. I mean, it's one or the other, If you can do something to kind of bring back some attraction if you're not feeling it, then by all means. But, if this is a situation where there just is none, period, then that's something that you should probably walk away from. But, that's just my 2 cents on that. Now, I've seen this before, and I've seen other cards pulled with it that would suggest there may not be enough on somebody's side, but there is something that you can do. But it's going to be up to you, right? Set those intentions. Now, when it comes to those of you who are in a relationship, children are an issue. Now, again, I always say this, you have to be careful. You don't want the children to be affected by what's going on. But I kind of get the feeling that for some of you, it may be a situation here where, somebody's wanting children and maybe can't. Then on the other hand, you may have kids and you may be waiting to introduce them into the relationship. Either way, as long as, kids aren't affected, everything's okay, those situations can be worked out. But I'm telling you, Libra, don't try to resurrect something that wasn't worthy of you in the first place.